Europe is suffering from a deadly heat wave. According to reports, several hundreds have been dead across European countries. These nations have been reporting record temperatures in the range of 35 to 45 degrees Celsius. Experts are attributing this extreme weather phenomena to something known as the omega block or the omega effect. So, in this session, let's understand why these temperatures of 35 to 45 degrees, which happens to be quite normal in many other parts of the world, how come it is causing such widespread devastation and destruction in Europe? Let's understand those factors. Let's talk about the omega block and let's understand this from a disaster management perspective. But first, the context. Over the past few days, Europe has been consumed by a deadly heat wave. France has reported record breaking temperatures in the range of 40 to 44 degrees Celsius. Even Spain, United Kingdom, Italy, they are all reporting record temperatures. In Germany, Poland, and even in the Balkans, extreme heat wave alerts have been issued. This has not only crippled the life and economy of the region, it has even led to a devastating impact, resulting in the death of several individuals. So, if you look at the baseline temperature and compare it with the average maximum temperature being recorded, you see a considerable jump in the range of 7.5 to 12.5 degrees Celsius across the continent, be it United Kingdom or be it towards northern parts of Europe or towards the Mediterranean coast. Across the continent, these record breaking temperatures have been reported. And as you can imagine, this has already had a deadly impact on human health and as well as on the local economy. In fact, in France alone, 48 deaths have been reported. They're not directly induced by heat wave, but as people prefer cooling solutions during these deadly temperatures, they prefer to swim in the open, particularly in unsupervised waters. And that's where most of these deaths have occurred in France because of drowning. So, indirect heat wave linked deaths are occurring. Spain has reported deaths in the range of 212 and above. And this death count is only going to increase. If past incidents are a reference, if you look at last year's heat wave condition or the heat wave in 2023, Europe suffers from a very significant death toll ranging in thousands. And this is what alarms the disaster planning authorities, governments, and international organizations across the world. Because it's not just Asia or Africa, Australia, which suffers from this condition. Today, even Europe, a region which otherwise is known for its cool, temperate climate, has often been witnessing these extreme weather events that leave behind a devastating trail of destruction. Now, before we continue further, before we understand whether these events have occurred before, what is this omega effect? Is it something completely new? And why Europe is suffering even at temperatures of 35 to 40 degrees, which is quite common in Indian cities? Let's answer all of that. But before that, I have an important announcement for those of you who are preparing for 2027 and beyond. If you're looking for a structured guided program for your UPSC civil services preparation, then Unacademy is launching the Elevate batch from 1st of July. This will give you access to all our live and recorded lectures, along with the study material, the test series, and one on one mentorship. Now, this would be the right time to enroll because, as part of Siksha Mahotsav, Unacademy is providing the triple treat offer. You not only get the lowest price ever for our subscription at just 16,999, you can now enroll into our plus program. You will also get double validity. That is, if you avail a subscription of 6 months, you get a subscription of 12 months essentially with 6 months free extension. The same for 9, 12, and 18 months. And you also get CSE Assure Guarantee, under which Unacademy will provide you a free extension if you don't clear the exam. And this depends on you meeting certain conditions. If you have attended the minimum number of classes, taken the minimum number of tests, if that effort has been there from your side, and despite that, you couldn't clear the exam, then your next attempt is entirely on us. So, three offers clubbed into one initiative, and you can now avail this at just 16,999. And this offer ends tonight. So rush immediately and the link for subscription is provided in the description box below. On the subscription page, you might see a different price, but to avail the offer, you have to enter the code IAS English. Now, coming back to the topic, has such heat waves occurred before in Europe? The answer is yes, especially in the last 2 decades, be it in 2003, 2018, in 2023, last year as well in 2025. Deadly heat waves have been recurring. This is a clear sign that extreme weather events, such as heat waves, they are occurring with greater frequency and intensity. Now, when you look at data from World Health Organization, according to WHO, over the past 4 years alone, Europe could have witnessed the loss of 2 lakh plus lives, either directly linked to heat waves or indirectly induced by heat waves. See, the reason why heat waves are deadly is because they have a very serious physiological impact. It mainly results in dehydration, especially when you have long exposure, and excessive dehydration could induce heat stress, leading to muscle cramps. It creates a electrolyte imbalance, which in turn can turn into a very severe form of heat stress, causing nausea, excessive excessive vomiting sensation, even dizziness and confusion. And if it is left untreated, if you don't receive adequate medical treatment, this could result in heat stroke, where your internal body temperature could cross 40 degrees Celsius. And that places tremendous physiological stress on all your organs, your cardiovascular system, the renal function, respiratory function gets affected, eventually resulting in multi organ failure. And this could turn out to be fatal, causing the death of the person. So, on one side, heat wave can directly kill a person, depends on the exposure, depends on access to medical health care and cooling solutions. Or else it can induce indirect deaths, as we have seen in France, where people try to cool off by going out swimming in unsupervised waters and drowning in the process. So, cumulatively, Europe alone has accounted for 2 lakh plus deaths, direct or indirect, according to WHO in the past 4 years. Then I was referring to a study published in Nature, a very insightful study about heat waves in Europe and the unique weather phenomena that Europe has been witnessing in the summer months. If you remember, in the last 2, 3 years as well, Europe has seen a repeating cycle of flood, heat, and flood. Some parts of Europe, particularly towards the Balkan region, Iberian Peninsula, they receive very heavy rainfall, even in parts of Germany as well, resulting in flash floods. Whereas few other parts like France, Spain, UK, and the others, they witness deadly heat wave conditions. So this cycle is all connected to a very unique weather phenomena, in turn driven by climate change. Now, when you look at this study, according to this scientific publication, which was published in Nature, 70,000 excess deaths were reported during the deadly heat wave of 2003. Now, that's what researchers do. They look at the death count and any sudden surge, unexplained surge in the death rate. Not all of them would be because of heat waves, of course, but at least a large number of them would be related directly or indirectly to heat wave induced deaths. So, researchers applied a statistical model to try and derive the eventual death count. Because in many cases, especially in cases of such disasters, it's very hard to quantify and put a number on the death toll. But one thing is very clear, that Europe faces a very big burden, and each summer season, as deadly heat waves keep recurring, the death count could be anywhere in the range of few thousands or even closer to a lakh. In 2023, the death count has been estimated at close to 47,690. And this is the second highest heat mortality burden that Europe has witnessed. Even last year, thousands of deaths were related to heat wave conditions in Europe. Now, what is causing this deadly condition? What is this term that you are seeing in social media, in newspapers, everywhere? People are talking about the omega block or the omega factor. What is this? So it refers to a very unique weather system and atmospheric circulation pattern that develops over continental Europe. So this has been noted not for the first time. It has occurred before as well. For example, the 2025 Europe heat wave. This was also linked with the omega pattern that forms over continental European landmass. So the flood heat flood extreme that I was mentioning is linked to this unique weather pattern that develops. So when you look at the atmospheric wind circulation and the pressure conditions over here, over the continental landmass, you have a high pressure condition that is basically sandwiched between two zones of low pressure. So it basically looks like the Greek letter omega. Thus the name omega block or omega pattern or omega effect. It's essentially a heat dome effect. It suppresses cloud formation, and the air, it sinks and stays at the surface. And the heat being radiated from the surface, it cannot escape easily because of the pressure variations. And as the heat cannot escape, it will heat up the surrounding environment, trapping all the heat, creating a dome like structure which traps all the heat closer to the surface and thus increases the compressional heating that occurs on the ground. And also, please understand that in Europe, this is the summer season, which means you have prolonged daytime, which increases the exposure to sunlight. So, all these factors combined together results in excessive heating. Now, generally, what happens? You have these jet stream currents that flow from west to east. This plays a big role in dissipating the heat. But when the omega pattern takes shape, when you have a high pressure zone over continental landmass surrounded by two low pressure zones, it will deflect the jet stream towards the outer boundaries, and it will not cool down the continental landmass. So, this heat dome that takes shape is, of course, aggravated by the urban heat dome condition. Given the extent of urbanization across Europe, the large scale emissions, industrial activity, and other anthropogenic emissions, they all add to this effect, creating a spatially compounding cascading effect. But the bigger question is, how come Europe is suffering to this extent with temperatures of just 35 degrees, 38 or 40, 42 degrees? These temperatures are very common in countries like India or Singapore or even in West Asian countries. These countries, they manage to get away with the impact, whereas Europe is visibly struggling. This largely has to do with the urban design and planning. It has to do with the legacy structures that are built in Europe. Because the continent being located in the temperate zone, it has always designed itself and developed and built itself to deal with colder climate and colder temperatures. If you look at European buildings and houses, they are largely built with material like stone, bricks, concrete. They're all designed to insulate the home and keep the heat trapped, especially when radiators are used, or let's say a heating system is put in place or a fireplace is lit. The material used in the building is designed to trap the heat and radiate that back to maintain the temperature during winter months, the harsh, cold winter months. Now, when such deadly heat occurs because of the omega effect, it compounds the heat inside the houses. And majority of the buildings and houses in Europe, they are devoid of air conditioners. This is more of a cultural and structural thing as well. In general, in Europe, air conditioners are not preferred, even in commercial spaces, in residential buildings. So, this creates a big challenge as you do not have sufficient cooling solutions. Traditionally, European people have built a culture around this. Whenever they have slightly higher heat during summer months, they tend to go out. They prefer swimming. That's the reason why a lot of swimming related drownings have taken place in France and other countries. And they prefer to rely on natural ventilation, keeping the windows open or staying indoors during the peak exposure hours. And the overall cultural practices, the urban planning, and the infrastructure in Europe is aggravating the impact. So, this is a big lesson in disaster management because if you cannot anticipate the hazard, understand the vulnerability, and adapt accordingly through better planning and preparedness, there will always be a devastating impact that such disasters can leave behind. Now, the big question is, does climate change play a role? The answer is, of course, yes. According to a study by World Meteorological Organization, climate change has fundamentally altered the temperature baselines in Europe. It is definitely driving more frequent extreme weather events and more intense extreme weather events. So, the urban heat island effect, accompanied with these rare weather patterns like omega effect, increases the urban heat retention. Plus, Europe has an aging population, which means they are more prone and vulnerable to physiological stress caused by deadly heat waves. And the overall lack of preparedness, the lack of capacity, this also plays a big role. And that is exactly what needs to be addressed in disaster planning and disaster preparedness. So, as climate change becomes a lived reality, countries across the world are adopting heat action plans. That's what India also has done. India, which also deals with deadly heat wave conditions, has a national heat wave action plan, which is pioneered by the National Disaster Management Authority. And these heat action plans are customized according to the state, according to the local conditions in each city, where the local bodies and the district level disaster management authorities play an important role in implementing the heat action plan. And that is exactly what Europe requires right now. Now, what is a heat action plan? In a heat action plan, you first prioritize early warning. You improve your weather forecasting and relaying the real time alerts. Then you engage the community, you engage the public, and you build awareness to drive behavioral changes, right? The public should be aware as what to do, what not to do during these conditions. You need institutional capacity as well, starting from the national government all the way to the provincial and the local levels. You need to keep your healthcare infrastructure prepared for this, especially the public healthcare infrastructure. And this resilience has to be built into urban infrastructure and urban planning. So, this coordinated effort will be driven through a heat action plan. Now, can you find out the key features of India's National Heat Action Plan and mention that in the comments below? So, this is what I wanted to discuss with you today. On this note, let's end the session. And if you liked it, do press the like button, share your comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.